For more on the threats involving Sochi, I'm joined now by former Navy SEAL Jonathan Gilliam. He's the CEO of the consulting company United States Continued Service. And Jonathan, thanks so much for coming in today. First of all, I want to get your thoughts on this. We were already talking about safety for Americans in the air, and then you have this incident in Ukraine. Your thoughts?
Well, I think this is a perfect example of the fact that they do not have to actually carry out an attack in order to instill fear. Fear is the cheapest and most effective way to get your point through when you're a terrorist. And so what they've done today, regardless if they had anything to do with this, the threats going on, this individual goes and gets on a plane and does this, now there's more fear.
Right. And they're saying alcohol, they're saying a whole bunch of different things, and you say really none of that matters. It's kind of just the climate of fear.
If you were flying, Harris, would you be afraid today because of that?
You know, my dad was a fighter pilot. I tend to...
Well, it gives you a little bit more.
I'm pretty tough.
Right.
You know, you're the kind of guy, though, with your background, that they probably would want to look at to hire to work some security over in Sochi. If you were handling that, what would you do?
Well, the first thing you want to do when you go in there, whether you're a citizen or security, is you want to know your surroundings, especially in this type of environment. This would be almost the equivalent of if 3 weeks before 9/11 they had told us that they were going to attack a building, and then we built a building. That's basically what's happening here. So when you go into this environment, you have to be very aware of surroundings. From a security standpoint, you have to be very aware of the tactics that are being used by these individuals, and then look into the direction where these attacks may come from and build proper defenses.
Let's talk about those tactics specifically, because Russia, from what I've read, deals with terrorists very differently than we do in this country. How so?
Well, they don't have the constitutional constraints that we have, first of all. And that works for them, but it also works against them, because they have developed an enemy that has a vengeance in their heart that is so great that they're willing to, and they're only 300 miles away. They're willing to go and lay their life down in order to get their point through, and this has been pushed back and back into them by Russia. The other thing that really bothers me is if something is going to happen and Russia is the one that's going to respond to this, they don't have a great track record of actually saving a lot of lives. In some circumstances, they've killed more people than the terrorists did.
That's an interesting point. And I think you're alluding to the separatists in the Caucasus region as being the main threat there, because they want to seek government change, which is a lot different than somebody who wants to simply scare. They actually have a political agenda. Talk with me, if you would, a little bit about our role, though, with Russia. You say you're not completely convinced that they could handle anything. Why aren't they taking our help?
Well, this gets into the whole political realm, but I think a good example of this, even though it was here versus there, was Boston. Boston was an example where Russia didn't share completely the information that they had with us, and the information that we had didn't get connected with that. Even though we have an incredible intelligence system throughout the world, the fact that we don't have great communication with Russia, and they're very secretive about what's going on in a lot of ways. It may not look good on the world stage. That plays greatly against our ability to actually go in there and defend our people.
And I heard what you were telling our audience. You know, if you're over there, if you have friends, family over there, people just kind of stick together and be aware of everything around you as much as you can.
Avoid, from a civilian's point of view, even if you're over there participating, avoid large groups of people, avoid mass transit.
It's hard to do with the Olympics, Jonathan.
You have to think like somebody who's going to attack. Unconventional warfare operators, they go in and they look at the most effective bang for their buck. You can do that yourself when you go in there. Look at where the majority of the people are. Look and just kind of stay back a little bit from that.
And I hear what you're saying. You're saying outside the accredited events from the games, when you go away from those things. Jonathan Gilliam today, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. Well, a Russian